Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Pro Savings Day's doorbuster deals are on at Lowe's. My Lowe's Pro Rewards members save an additional $120 on a GE 21.9 cubic foot top freezer refrigerator. Plus, members save $70 on a Bosch hammer drill, now only $99. Not a Pro Rewards member? Join for free today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 7/23 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. See Lowe's.com/terms for details. Subject to change.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits. From sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Oh, happy Monday. I will be packing up my bags and heading to Toronto this week to visit my father. Don't worry, I'll still do the show while I'm traveling. It's his 76th birthday, and I'm going to surprise him, so don't tell him. Enough about me. Here's what you will learn on tonight's program. We will discover why memes aren't just funny pictures. They are a new form of visual storytelling, much like comics. In fact, you'll see how memes are kind of exactly like comics. They sort of mirror highbrow things like the New Yorker's caption contest, where people submit one-liners to match unlabeled comics. So are memes a form of modern storytelling? And why the way you scroll matters more than you think? That is what we'll cover in about 10 minutes' time. Then, this one's shocking. That person who scam called you in an attempt to steal your banking information, that call may have been from someone being held captive, tortured, and forced to scam you. Halfway through the hour, we'll uncover the dark world of human trafficking behind those annoying calls, and why the person trying to victimize you may have been a victim themselves. You're not going to want to miss that. That's just some of what you'll learn on tonight's show, but for now, let's jump in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
And in British school children boring a tunnel using school-issued cutlery to escape their school grounds and skip class news. My God, that is a specific topic. We are joined by Tony Five, foreign correspondent in London, England, reporting live from the scene of his apartment about a story that comes out of Nottingham about school children boring tunnels out of their school. Tony, welcome in.
David, fantastic to be here. We're skipping away from our bird-related news specifics, and we are going to Nottingham, which is in the north of England, England being in Europe. And some school-aged children, David, as you would have called them, maybe 11 to 16-year-olds, decided to take school cutlery from their dinner times and dig underneath a 12-foot fence to escape school, a la the Shawshank Redemption or the Great Escape.
What is with this school in Nottingham that has children fenced in? When I went to high school, you could just walk out of the school. Yes, there would be repercussions. Like, yes, you would get in trouble. Parents would get involved if you skipped class. But you weren't trapped in there like a prison. Is this common in UK schools?
Yes, so most UK schools have their, because of kids being taken and stuff like that, the gates are actually shut, which is true. They kind of open at dinner times and school times, like people can drive in and out, but there's usually like entry access. So like there's a buzzer and you let in. But most, like for example, primary schools, definitely they're sealed. They used to have open fences so you could look into a playground. Those are covered now. So you can't see kids. Like it's really, really quite specific. Like my old primary school where I used to play, and so primary school in the UK is kind of from reception all the way up to, I would say, maybe 10 before you go to a senior school, right?
Sure.
But your school would be a junior school. It's a very odd scenario you've got over there. But they would cover the fences. So if you had like open grill fences, they'd be covered by foliage or whatever, so you can't see through. And then they stopped having the gates open so you couldn't walk in and out. And then they stopped you getting into the school. So now there's a perimeter fence. It does sound like a jail, doesn't it?
It does.
It sounds like San Quentin, doesn't it?
It does. I don't know. Are things really that bad for kids, or is it just politicians and people who run neighborhoods just like acting overboard?
Do you know what? I think in the late 80s, early 90s, there was some quite big child kidnapping cases. And the government kind of cracked down on it, and basically just made schools a lot more secure.
Well, we've additionally got breaking news out of London, England. It is raining so loud in Tony's apartment, I can sort of hear it.
David, can you hear that? I know most people thought I was just going to the toilet, but it's actually God's will that it is actually raining very, very heavy. I don't know whether you can hear it, but I'm going to be trapped underwater very soon, my friend, and I'm on the second floor.
Who'd have thought? Raining in England. All right, back to this school story. So the kids decided they wanted out. They wanted to skip class and do naughty kid things. So they grabbed a couple of knives and forks and tunneled underneath the fence.
Correct. And they were very conscientious because they put plastic bags down so that their blazers, their school uniform, wouldn't get too dirty.
Is that common that British children wear blazers to school?
Yeah, do you not have that? So, like, most schools, I would say a good sort of 80% upwards, will have a school uniform, which would be consisting of a blazer, a formal shirt, a tie, and the same trousers. There are very, very few schools that have got a no uniform. And and I always used to wonder why that was. And it was technically to put everybody on an even field. Because I think maybe in the 90s and stuff, where they did trial kids not having it, then you get kids who've got better trainers than others, different social backgrounds, and then at one stage, I remember when I was at school, there was a big thing on kids stealing other kids' trainers.
So the way that the British handle like class differences, one kid showing up at school with fancy clothes and shoes and the kids having less, showing up with less, is to dress up everybody in formal fancy blazers and shoes. I feel like that's such a British solution to a problem. Like, oh, not every kid is equal, so we'll just make them all dress up like stuffy jerks.
Absolutely. I mean, and you can go to like the Harrow School. So for those who are listening, if you want to Google like the Harrow School, they wear like a formal shirt and trousers with a frilly neck and a long like dinner suit with a tail. They look ridiculous when they're walking through. And Eton's another one, obviously where the royal family goes. If you Google up like the Eton uniform, you look absolutely ridiculous.
They look like 17th century like French lords with their frilly t-shirts and stuff.
Correct. That's the one. Frilly t-shirts, walking to school.
All right. Well, that is the students tunneling out of their maybe Parisian schools. Tony, I want to touch upon a story we covered last Friday. It seems like it's going from bad to worse. It has to do with this CEO of this company, Astronomer, who got caught cheating on his wife at a concert. But I think the real question in this whole saga is it more embarrassing to be caught at a Coldplay concert,
David,
than it is embarrassing getting caught on a kiss cam cheating on your wife?
I believe that it's mainly about attending a middle-rate band who have had the same song for the last 20 years. I don't think he had anything to do with the affair. I think he was purely ashamed. This guy's like a billionaire, right? He could have gone and seen the Spice Girls. Drake is performing at the moment. Taylor Swift is probably doing something somewhere. But yet he goes to Coldplay, gets caught smooching with his head of PR or something, and it's all over for him. Unbelievable.
Head of HR. As the story gets worse and worse, I find myself feeling bad for the guy and for the woman. Yes, they cheated, but like some huge percentage of folks cheat. Now, I'm not saying cheating is right. It's wrong and cruel and awful and destroys people's lives, but it's such a common thing, and most people's punishment is just an acrimonious divorce, which in and of itself is not fun as a divorced person.
But I mean, this is playing out on the world stage, right? And he's a very well-off CEO. So, I mean, the wife obviously saw it as well. But it started off like as a meme. And I think Chris Martin should be to blame as well. Because had he not commented on it, had they just passed it on, it would have been fine, right? But what he did is goes, these guys must be having an affair. And obviously they were. And then it became like such a big thing. And that, for me personally, it's the whole viral nature of it. You can't hide anywhere, right? And I don't think I like it. Not that I approve of what the guy did.
No.
But like, what happened to the old times when you could just have an affair and kick back at a Coldplay concert?
Exactly. Or you have an affair, you get caught, you have an acrimonious divorce, it destroys your private life, but your professional life is unaffected. Having said that, he did cheat with the head of HR. It's like you picked the worst possible thing. So while I do feel a little bit bad that this is blown up, and I'm sure that this guy's life over the next few weeks is going to be hell, on the other hand, it's hard to feel too bad for them.
It is. I mean, as a billionaire, I don't think he's going to suffer that badly, David, unless he has to sell his Coldplay collection at home.
I thought you were about to say as a billionaire, as if you were a billionaire. Tony 5, foreign correspondent.
And Coldplay hater, David. Coldplay hater. Don't forget.
Tony 5. All right, coming up next. Memes might seem like throwaway internet jokes, but what if they're actually the modern day comic strip, highbrow ones at that? After the break, we'll look at how memes mirror traditional comics. That ridiculous cat video that got traded around might be modern storytelling. Details and perhaps a caption contest coming up in a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. From improving emergency response times to protecting against cyber attacks, local, state, and federal governments are innovating with Google AI. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American Innovation.
Your above-average intelligence brought you here. It deserves above-average absurdity. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Memes, cat videos. Are memes just internet jokes, or sharing them with your friends something more? Are memes a modern form of comic, complete with visual storytelling, punchlines, even artistic authorship? We're here to discuss with Dr. Michelle Ann Abate, who's a professor of literature for children and young adults at The Ohio State University. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
First of all, how cool is this? You actually get to research memes in your professional life. If you get caught by your boss sharing a silly video, you can just say, I'm doing research. I'm a little jealous of you, to be honest.
I have a wonderful job, and I love every minute of it. When I'm not working on memes, I work on comics and graphic novels. And when I'm not doing that, I work on children's literature and young adult fiction. So really, and then I get to talk about it with students. So it's wonderful.
Let's jump into the research. What made you first suspect that memes might actually be a sort of comic? Was there a particular meme that sparked that thought for you?
Well, like many people, I have little, group threads with various friends, and we trade funny things. I'm sure, many of the folks out there have similar group chats with friends and family, and we trade, funny comics, funny videos. And I was, sending a lot of memes and comics, and it occurred to me at one point that really there isn't a whole lot of difference between how a meme operates with the visual and verbal interaction and how a comic operates, especially a single panel comic. And so it was kind of that realization as I was posting things to our group chat that I thought, I'm not really sure there's a whole lot of distinction here. I'm going to, think more about this and maybe even explore it, kind of in a more systematized way.
Is there really no difference between highbrow New Yorker comics and the silly memes I'm transacting with my friends? Like, when we actually boil down to it, are they kind of the same thing?
Well, so the article that I wrote about memes as comics, the endpoint, I talk about how comics have always had kind of a form of mimicry or mimesis. And an example, kind of a modern day example, would be the caption contest in the New Yorker magazine, which I love. I know many people love. The magazine kind of frames it as a crowdsourcing contest where they if you're not familiar with it, they publish a single panel drawing that has no speech balloons, no captions, nothing. And then readers of the magazine send in their suggestions for the caption or the dialogue box. The week after, they include the top three, the three options, and then the week after that is the winner of the contest. And it's usually seen as crowdsourcing, but it's also a form of memeing, that you've got this kind of image macro, this sort of template or stencil drawing that then people provide their own text for, which is really not much different than distracted boyfriend or, there's so many memes that you have a static, or this is fine, you have a static image and people offer variations on what the caption or what the dialogue should be. So I make that case that really the caption contest in the New Yorker, even though it's seen as highbrow, can be seen as a form of memeing.
And in some sense, this crowdsourcing is no different than, let's say, the highest voted funny comment on a meme post, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so, there's a continuity there. They're not totally separate. They exist on this spectrum.
You compare meme creation to musical sampling, like one artist puts out a track and then another artist uses a clip of it. It's very popular in hip hop. I'm sure everyone knows what sampling is. I don't know why I'm explaining it. What do you think that comparison reveals about memes as a form of creativity or authorship or even crowdsourcing, like you just mentioned?
Well, I think it's part of, we kind of have a remix culture where we're poaching, repackaging, revising, remixing so many facets of our culture, not just in music. Music is kind of the most well-known example, but there's so many parts of our culture that's kind of repackaged, remixed, reimagined, whether it's, movie remakes of classic movies with, have been reimagined with a different cast or set in a different time period or updated to contemporary moments, or new technology is included. Or it's, like I said, with memes. I think there's a lot of ways in which that phenomenon isn't limited to music. It expands through all kinds of entertainment media.
If we accept memes as comics, does that mean we should be studying them in the classroom like we do graphic novels? Are memes really something worthy of looking at them academically these days?
Oh, I think so. Memes are such an important part of the lexicon of the 21st century, of the way we communicate, our sense of humor, our political commentary. They're a way of coping during difficult times, during the pandemic. There were articles about how people were coping with memes, that, things were scary, things were upsetting, and people were using the humor of memes as a way to cope. So I think memes are absolutely worthy of study from an academic standpoint, from psychology, from political science, from communication, linguistics, so many angles.
The pandemic, I got my taste for cat videos, endless cat videos during the pandemic, and that taste has not gone away.
As it should not.
Let's look at the history of comics. I'm sure if we were debating this, although maybe there might not have been a radio program like this, but if we were debating this in, I don't know, the 1940s or 50s, back then, comics, even something like the New Yorker comics, would have had a reputation as being low culture, unworthy of academic respectability. Do you think memes are kind of walking in the direction of comics, where they're sort of becoming more mainstream, they're becoming more worthy of looking at them academically?
Well, memes still struggle a little bit with, cultural respectability. They've gained a lot of ground since, say, the 1990s or 1980s in terms of being seen as, sort of having literary merit and addressing serious subject matter. Of course, Art Spiegelman's Mouse, which won the Pulitzer Prize, went a long way towards bringing comics into the realm of kind of a literary, platform and, something worthy of serious study. I think memes are on a similar trajectory. I think now, they're often just seen as something funny, something to pass the time. But like I said, they serve a lot of important cultural functions from a linguistic standpoint, political standpoint, humor standpoint, all kinds of ways, the way we connect with each other. So, they're on a similar spectrum there with comics as well.
Being a cartoonist or comic artist, I feel like is a respectable job. I don't know how well it pays, probably not well at all. But being a meme creator, that's seen as something silly. But do you think we should be putting meme creator on our resume? Do you think people who actually spend time creating these things and the ones they create have a certain virality, do you think that will soon be a respectable career path?
Right now, most memes get circulated and you don't know who created them. Someone created them, someone made them. But usually by the time they go viral, you can't figure out, they're not attributed. You're not sure who made it. You're not sure where it started. And with my article, I did digging on many of the memes I include. I could not track down the first iteration. I tried, I dug, I had librarians helping me. So right now, meme creation, unlike being a cartoonist, it's generally seen as something not anonymous, because you start it, you release it into the world, but by the time it goes viral, you've kind of lost control of your creation. And also, of course, someone has probably repackaged, poached it, remixed it, revised it from you. So we would have to kind of rethink meme creators from the way it sort of exists now. Because generally speaking, when you make a meme, you're not so worried about having your byline attached. You're just trying to make a joke in the moment.
Do you think that dubious authorship, do you think it'll always be the case? Or do you think we'll rethink how to create memes in a way that attributes people's authorship?
If there's a way to monetize it, I think then that will change. Right now, memes go viral. And again, there's no expectation that you're going to, earn anything from it or get any kind of monetary reward for how viral your meme goes. If there's a way to change that, I think we'll see a change in how memes are credited. And there'll be an expectation that there will be credit because someone will be able to monetize the number of clicks, the number of shares, the number of views.
Let's have a little fun here. What's your favorite meme that you think functions like the perfect little comic strip?
I'm a big fan of Distracted Boyfriend. I feel like the setup for that, there's a lot of funny possibilities. My article actually has 3 or 4 iterations of Distracted Boyfriend. One of my favorites is with the boy, the man in the middle, as Herman Melville looking at the woman, and the woman is labeled as, every fact about whales, and then his girlfriend behind is the actual plot of Moby Dick. And as a big book nerd and English major and literary critic, that's one of my favorites. So Distracted Boyfriend, I feel like, is endlessly repurposable. So that's on the list.
Michelle, thanks for going over your research with me. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Dr. Michelle Ann Abate is a professor of literature for children and young adults at The Ohio State University. After the break, we all hate spam calls, especially when the person on the other end is trying to steal from you. But what if that person wasn't a scammer, but someone who's been trafficked, beaten, and forced to work in a call center against their will? Shockingly, it happens. And coming up next, we'll look at the hidden human cost behind the world's most irritating phone calls, all on Conspiracy Corner.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
The last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
I'm sure you've gotten a weird DM, a strange text message, or even an obviously spam call trying to scam you. Maybe it's asking for your bank information. Maybe it's someone on the other end of the phone with an accent telling you they work for your bank, and obviously they don't. Well, some of us get a dark joy from messaging back or even taking the phone call and messing with the scammer. But today we're going to learn why you might want to rethink that here with political science professor at Humber Polytechnic and co-host of the Uncover Up podcast, Dr. Lee Kuhnle. It is Conspiracy Corner. Lee, let's first talk about these calls that I've certainly gotten. Maybe it's someone pretending to be a police officer. Maybe it's someone pretending to work for a brokerage firm. And it's like, yeah, you're trying to scam me right now. Also, welcome to the show.
Hi, David. It's great to be here. And yeah, I mean, as you say, we've all gotten versions of these calls. And I remember this goes way back. I think it was a show on NPR. There were some guys who started scamming the scammers.
Yes.
And I took a kind of a dark joy in that because there is something kind of mean about,
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, you're pretending to be the bank. I know you're not my bank, but what about some poor older person who's in their 90s and doesn't have a great memory? Like, You guys are awful, evil people. You're scamming those around us, and yeah, we're going to mess with you. That's kind of the dark joy.
Exactly. And there's a whole genre on YouTube and other places where there are people who are in some way skilled, right? Hackers who can somehow penetrate their systems and turn their cameras on them and drain their crypto wallets or somehow get their information and their money. And I did take some joy in watching those as well. And while I never did anything to the degree that any of these people did, I did try and exert my own sort of vigilante justice. It was so stupid. Okay, look, I know this is an extremely childish thing to do, but one time I would just say yes to everything that they would say. So even when it didn't make any sense at all, it's just dumb, right? And then at some point they realize.
And it's really easy to feel good about what you're doing because you imagine on the other end of the line is some awful scammer who's trying to rob you.
Exactly. And, the thing is, like, it feels good to get back at people who are being mean to people, right?
Sure.
But I discovered something that really flipped the script for me. And it first came from a wonderful little book, actually, Number Go Up by Zeke Fox. And he's a financial analyst and journalist. And he was in on the whole kind of NFT explosion, and he was writing about it. And as he does so, he starts getting, because he's in the scene in a way, he starts getting these what are called pig butchering scams. Now, these are kind of long cons where it starts out with some kind of potential for a romantic relationship. But of course, the end goal of the scam is to give all your crypto assets to this person who is going to help you make way more money. Now, Zeke Fox is a really good journalist, and he plays along with the scam to the point where he actually then goes to the country where these calls are coming from to find out what's going on. And what he discovers is absolutely terrifying.
Horrifying. And I want people to pay attention because the next time you get a phone call from a spam caller who either has an accent or you get some sort of communication that seems fishy, someone trying to scam you, you really got to think about this because the person on the other end of the call might be a victim themselves. And that's what's so shocking about this.
Yeah, there exists a massive human trafficking ring which enslaves people in compounds which are guarded, they can't leave, and they are often beaten, like mercilessly beaten. They cannot contact their families. They cannot get out. They can't resign. They work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Passports taken away, not allowed to leave. It is horrifying. It's people living in abject, coercion. It's trafficking at its worst.
Exactly. There exists, especially in Myanmar, it's not the only place, but it's really kind of become the hotbed of this. Entire office complexes that are basically compounds that are self-contained. They have dormitories for sleeping. They have grocery stores and workspaces. And people who end up there, they never get out unless they're rescued. And there actually exists there exists agencies which work to try and follow them as they're either getting entrapped in this to begin with, or what'll happen sometimes if people resist, right? That like people are like, I'm not going to do it. I'm just forget it. Even they'll take the beatings or whatever. There exists a market within the scam call centers, these human trafficking centers, where they trade these recalcitrant workers with each other. To do that, they sometimes leave Myanmar and go into either Thailand or China. And at that point, sometimes these rescue agencies are able to like stop the car as they're going from one place to another. They bring them into their car and they zoom off somewhere. And this for me was such a revelation that here I am thinking, oh, these people, they're not nice people, and they know that they're working to scam people, especially elderly, vulnerable populations out of their savings. And in fact, of course, this does not apply to everybody.
Yeah, we're not saying everyone on the other end of the phone trying to scam you with a scam call is human trafficked.
Exactly.
But you might want to second guess messing with these people. If you answer by accident and realize what you're into, you might just want to say no thank you and hang up.
Yeah, they have quotas that they need to meet, right? They are given a certain amount of money that they need to bring in every day, every week. And if they don't do that, they get beaten.
It's wild.
So, when I'm there kind of like being just saying yes to some guy who is, basically has a gun to his head, that's not even entirely metaphorical. And here I am in my free, luxurious lifestyle. It was a shocking revelation.
It is a shocking revelation. I don't want you to be too hard on yourself, because for you to assume someone trying to scam you is not a great person is like it's not an unreasonable position to take. But once you learn of how awful the conditions are for these, they're not workers. I mean, I don't even know they're coerced individuals. Like, how would you even?
They're effectively slaves.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they can be bought and sold. They can be beaten. They have no rights of their own. Like, I just don't know. As a political scientist, these kinds of words, these kind of categories, I try and be quite careful about them. But this is a form of slavery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, just straight up, right?
And once I learned this, if I don't always pick up unknown numbers, but sometimes, let's say I'm expecting a call from someone I don't know, or some office, or, sometimes you got to pick up the phone to an unknown number. And if it's a scam call, I just hang up, or I say no thank you and I hang up, because the idea that like that person is being treated way worse than I could ever be treated being scammed by them. At worst, I lose all my money, my house, but I'm still free,
Yeah, exactly.
It's such a wild, shocking revelation. And the condition in these compounds are so awful. And it's not just telephone scams. It's like romance scams.
Oh, yeah.
TikTok swindles. Lee, how does this end up happening to individuals? Like, how do I go from living in one country to stuck in one of these compounds?
What'll often happen is people will respond to an ad for something that they're qualified for, but because it's overseas, it is going to be better remunerated. And they say, okay, I'll go to Myanmar for 2 years as an office manager, and I'll make, twice as much as I would have made at home, plus had some international experience. So and this is actually a lot how other human trafficking rings work as well, right? Because if this is how people get entrapped in sex work, because they might apply to be a nanny somewhere, and then it turns out no. So this is what happens. They show up at the airport, somebody's going to pick them up, and then they are in the car and they're expecting to be driven to their hotel, but they're not. They're driven to the compound, at which point their passports are taken away, and then they are stuck. And sometimes their family just doesn't hear from them anymore. That's it.
It really does make you rethink who might be on the other end of that scam call, that scam text, that scam DM. And really shocking revelation when I first heard it. Lee, thanks for sharing it with me.
You're welcome.
Dr. Lee Kuhnle is a political science professor at Humber Polytechnic, and he co-hosts the Uncover Up podcast. What if a new approach to school lunch can change how an entire country thinks, eats, and grows? The French do it. Why can't we? I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show, and that is up next.
This episode is brought to you by eBay. We all have that piece. The one that's so you've basically become known for it. And if you don't yet, fashionistas, you'll find it on eBay. That Miu Miu red leather bomber, the Custo Barcelona cowboy top, or that Patagonia fleece in the 2017 colorway. All these finds are all on eBay, along with millions of more main character pieces backed by authenticity guarantee. eBay is the place for pre-loved and vintage fashion. eBay, things people love.
The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Remember lunchtime at school? What if your school lunch wasn't just framed as filling stomachs, but shaping culture, community, even the economy? Let's look at France, to the French, where they serve up education and identity at their lunches alongside vegetables. So what might we in North America gain by rethinking the way we feed our kids at school? That is what we'll learn here with Dr. Rachel Engler-Stringer, a professor at the University of Saskatchewan College of Medicine. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I've read something you wrote about France, where school lunch isn't just about nutrition, it's about togetherness. What does that look like in practice? And how does it differ from, the school lunch that I might have had growing up?
Well, I think it differs in a lot of ways. The first way is that all kids are generally eating the same thing together. So when I was in France this spring on a trip to visit 6 cities, 3 in France, 2 in England, 1 in Scotland, and meet with experts on school food, sort of immerse in those places and sort of see those programs in action. In one French school that I went to, it was actually quite similar in the 2 that I had lunch in. Kids were sitting around a table, group of sort of 8 kids with an adult who was called an animator. whose role it was to talk about the food, talk about what kids were eating, explain to them why it was important that they learn how those foods grow. They sang sort of little songs with little kids, those sorts of things, and they all ate together. And so the meals are pretty similar, depending on where you are, in the sense that there's a pattern. So first, they're served vegetables to the salad. In one example, it was a green bean salad as the first course. Then they're served the main dish, which at least twice a week has to be vegetarian. And so some sort of a main dish, and then that's followed by baguette and a piece of cheese and a piece of fruit. And that's a fairly consistent, so it's a simple meal, high quality. I would say the meals that I had were really, I would say, restaurant quality. And there was this sort of sense of we're building community around the table as those kids were eating together.
In North America, like I grew up in Canada, I live in the US now, school meals are often seen as like, I don't know, at least they're talked about in the media as a safety net for kids in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
I'd argue that that framing is limiting. What could change if we saw school food as a tool for education and well-being and, as you say, building community? What do you think might change if we started doing that?
Well, I mean, I think what the evidence internationally tells us is that we might see better educational outcomes. So in Sweden, for example, where they is one of the few countries where they done a longitudinal study, so followed people from childhood through to adulthood, they actually found greater earnings in adulthood for those children who had received that meal at school for free over the course of their childhoods. So primarily in the area of education, in prevention of chronic disease, sort of all those things that we think of as potentially saving ourselves money in the future.
That's such a wild computation. I'm sure you can't actually do it, but if you invest more in kids' food early on, you get better returns in like less burden on the health system and then greater returns on taxation on their higher incomes. I wonder if it would be worth it if the country could actually make money if they put money into food, but I doubt it would ever happen.
Yeah. Although, I mean, in the United States, you have seen in the last number of years that there are some states that have moved towards universal free school meals in an effort to do just what we've been discussing.
Let's talk about picky eating, because this is such a small thing, but I feel like it can really affect people as adults, like your ability to fit in at work for going out for a dinner or going over to a dinner party at a friend's house where you can't eat their food. Is having really good investment in school lunches a way to encourage picky eaters to be less picky, to try new foods and sort of expand their palates?
Yeah, well, so there's research of England primarily that shows this, that kids who eat in school lunch programs are less picky than their peers who do not, so who bring their lunch from home. I mean, the challenge for parents, of course, is that we don't want to waste food. So what we do is we buy the things that we know that our kids like, and, we send notice to school with them. And our kids are not necessarily encouraged to move beyond that. And that becomes even more of an issue when we're talking about low-income families, where you can't afford for foods to go to waste. So, in a past research life, and when I studied the cooking practices of low-income families, one of the things that was really clearly observed was that those vegetables and fruit that they purchased that they could actually afford were a very limited number, because those were the ones that you would not go to waste. So one of the advantages of a school food context is that you've got all those kids together. You can encourage that trying of new foods and over time developing a palate. It takes a lot of tries and often a lot of food waste for kids to get to the point. Those who begin a little bit pickier to start to eat those foods. So even here in a study we conducted in Saskatoon, a universal lunch pilot, over the course of a 2-year period, we found that that even the kids who wouldn't try anything at the beginning of the study, by the end of that 2-year period, they were eating at least 1 or 2 vegetables and fruit that were on the side. So there were always 2 vegetables, 2 fruit on the side every day. There was always something that those kids would eat by the end of that 2-year period.
From a logistics perspective, the French model seems kind of like a miracle. Thousands of nutritious, culturally significant, diverse foods from a central kitchen. How do they pull this off? And what would it take for something like that to happen where you live, where I live here in North America?
So, I mean, part of it is an investment, of the significant investment that they put in place over a long period of time. So they've been developing their model over, quite some time. So that's a part of it. I mean, I think that in a country like Canada, where we have never had a national school food program until the one announced, a year ago, it's in some ways we're not working from scratch because there are ad hoc meal programs all over the country, but they are more of that sort of safety net kind of approach. But we definitely need to invest. However, I would say that one of the advantages of being in a place where we haven't had programs where we can look to other models is we don't have to figure it out for ourselves like they had to in France or Finland or Japan or any of these other countries that have done it really well. Instead, we can learn from those models, and then we can adapt them to the Canadian context and figure it out from there.
What do these international food programs reflect about the culture and the values of the societies where they're in? And what would our lunchrooms say about our society?
Oh, that's a good question. So, I mean, I think in some ways it's about how we think of children and how we think of, it's not that different from investment in public education, for example. In some societies, cutting from public education is sort of considered something you just wouldn't do. Whereas I would argue in Canada and the United States, we're often having debates about whether or not we should be investing in public education. So to me, children are ensuring we have the best educated, the healthiest, the most sort of well-adjusted broadly children is to the benefit of everybody in our society. And I think, we need to, if we think of things that way, then we need to have actions that make that happen.
Favorite dish or dish that most surprised you while you were traveling abroad, auditing these lunch programs around Europe, I guess, and the world?
Yeah. So someone asked me this question recently, and I kind of giggled. It was watching 4-year-old eat a heart of palm salad like it was every day.
Yeah. Surprising. Yeah, I'm sure I wouldn't have eaten that as a 4-year-old. Well, Dr. Rachel Engler-Stringer is a professor at the University of Saskatchewan College of Medicine. Rachel, thanks for sharing your research with me. And I guess bon appetit. What am I, Julia Child over here?
Thank you. Have a great day.
Coming up next, is wanting a romantic relationship the key to finding one? Or could that desire be exactly what's getting in your way? Well, a new study breaks down the surprising psychology behind why some people find love and others don't. Turns out, it's not just about wanting it enough. If it's not for the right reasons, a serious girlfriend or boyfriend is less likely to happen.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Taste the forbidden fruit of knowledge. The last show with David Cooper.
Why do some people find love while others spin their wheels? Well, new research suggests that the answer might lie in why you're looking in the first place. Let's learn what your dating motivation says about your dating future and why wanting to find that special someone too badly may actually backfire. I'm here with someone who studied this area. His name is Dr. Geoff MacDonald, and he is a psychology professor at the University of Toronto. Geoff, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start big here. Your research. Why look into why people seek romantic relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it started out, kind of like nerdy inside baseball, right? Where I've done a lot of research on romantic relationships, and the people who think about that, when you ask why are people wanting to have relationships, people think of it as we've evolved to want love or we've evolved to want sex. It's just some kind of natural drive that we have. But I've also been doing a lot of work on singlehood, and a lot of people who, think a lot about singlehood You know, I mean, if you've ever gone home for Thanksgiving as a single person, you know that there's more to, the motivation to get in a relationship than just what you want. Family, friends, society will sometimes get on your case if you're a single person, right? And so what I wanted to do is to do some kind of research where we could look at all of these different reasons why someone might want to be in a relationship at the same time and maybe learn something about, how they affect people and whether they predict who's actually going to get in a relationship or not.
As you listed your reasons for the why, I thought to myself, I have a Jewish mother, and the why is for family reasons. She wants me to bring home someone so she can have grandkids. I feel like there are a lot of motivations that people look for that significant other that aren't just like, oh, I really want to be in a relationship for me, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly why we did it.
You developed something called the Autonomous Motivation for Romantic Pursuit Scale. For the uninitiated, what is this? And how does it help us understand what we couldn't see about relationships before?
So, yeah, I mean, it's the scale that I did to try to bring together all these reasons. And, basically the idea is that there's a range of sort of autonomy that people bring to the things that they do. So, probably the sort of best reason you can have for doing something is that you just enjoy it, right? So if you're one of the lucky people, for example, who just enjoys exercising, it's easy for you to keep fit because you're not doing it for any kind of reward. You'll just do it for its own sake, right? And so on the scale, we kind of use that to apply to dating and getting in relationships. And so, we asked as part of the scale, do you want to get in a relationship because you enjoy it? But then we kind of went down the range of these different reasons, kind of a slightly less autonomous reason to do things is because it's an important goal for you. So, if you're somebody for whom relationships are an important goal because you want to have kids, for example, you're not necessarily dating because the dating itself is super enjoyable, but there's a really important part of you that's going to get fulfilled by going out and meeting someone and building a family and that kind of thing. But then, there's other reasons why people go out to date. One is to feel better about themselves. Maybe you feel like you're a bit of a loser because you're single and you'd like to take care of that by getting in a relationship. That's less autonomous by our scale. Your mom giving you a hard time is what we call external motivation, where you're doing it to make other people happy. And then, one of the biggest, most important parts of this, why I really like the model that we were using for this, is that it also includes a motivation, which is I don't want to be in a relationship at all. And again, there's a lot of people who don't want a relationship, and I think they've kind of been ignored, but their desire to not be in a relationship is part of what's in the mix in all of this too.
Interesting. Let's talk about those less autonomous motivations, like people who pursue relationships to maybe avoid family shame or because they're lonely and it's more about them feeling less lonely. Do these kind of motivations backfire and lead to people less likely to find fulfilling relationships?
Yeah, I mean, especially the one that, if you're dating in order to not feel bad about yourself, our research suggested you're actually less likely to end up in a relationship later. And this is consistent with some other research that people who want to be in a relationship to feel less bad about themselves, they're actually very strongly motivated to be in a relationship. They want it very badly. There's some research about what they're like on a first date, and they're extra charming and they're, extra friendly, but people can also tell they're a little tense about the whole situation. And see, that's the thing, is that the people who have that kind of motivation, what the research is suggesting is they kind of get in their own way a little bit. By not being chill, by trying a little bit too hard. And also they tend to be the people, because this means so much to their ego, they take any kind of rejection super personally. And so it kind of gets in their own way. And that's why we think they're less likely to actually end up in a relationship.
If we want something so badly, it can have the opposite effect. Even outside of romantic relationships, if you want a group of friends to like you a lot and you try too hard, it's off-putting to people. What is it about the human condition where if we want something really badly, people aren't willing to give it to us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that piece where it comes with this hypersensitivity to everything. So, one of the things that we really like in our friends and our romantic partners is people who aren't super controlling. And, imagine you're one of these types of people who wants this relationship so badly. You tend to hold on to things tightly that you need desperately. And let's say in a romantic relationship situation, what that often turns into is like being jealous and being controlling. You know, that can happen with friendships too. We're like, oh, why did you hang out with them? Why didn't you hang out with me? And that's a bit of a buzzkill when it comes to relationships. And so it's helpful if you want to have good connections with people to be okay with, you know, feeling that you're not their number one priority all the time. That gives the other people a sense of autonomy and makes you someone that they want to spend time with.
There's this pop psychology cliche that you have to like love yourself, like spending time alone, learn to like yourself before you can love someone else. Which is to say, if you figure out how to be happy alone, you'll find someone more easily. But based on your research, is there actually truth to this cliche?
I think that is true. That people who, you know, for example, we do a lot of research on the fear of being single, for example, and so, you know, people who are okay with the idea that they're going to end up alone are the people who kind of have the confidence to go and put themselves out there more. So we do think that there's a bit of being, you know, I mean, let me put it this way. I would say that the healthiest profile that we've been finding in our research in terms of people orienting themselves towards getting in a relationship is the people who would like to find somebody, but they're okay if they don't. And one of the things that lets people do is you can kind of be appropriately choosy. You don't just have to grab onto anyone, even if that's going to end up being a bad relationship. And like, yeah, you know, I mean, in colloquial terms, people can smell desperation and it's not attractive, you know?
Let's talk about those people who are okay being alone. Did you find that people who were alone were sexually satisfied more than you thought that you would?
Yeah, well, you know, this was a bit of a surprise in the research for us. So, you know, in these amotivated people, the people who are telling us that they don't want a romantic relationship, it was looking like there were two different types of people who are saying that they don't want a relationship. So one type of person is somebody who just doesn't have a lot of interest in romantic relationships. So think, for example, aromantic people who are pretty happy being single, not really that oriented towards dating. But it looked like there was another group of people who were telling us that they weren't interested in being in a romantic relationship. And we think that this is because they were having sex with people, they were maybe casually dating. And so what they were saying is that I don't want to be in a committed relationship, because these people did tell us that they were pretty high in sexual satisfaction. So we assume that a lot of them are sleeping with other people. But in a couple of our studies now, you know, what we find is that these more sexually satisfied singles, they'll say, I'm not that interested in being in a romantic relationship. But if you track them over time, they're actually more likely to end up in a romantic relationship. And so, you know, what we think is going on there is basically just the old-fashioned people catch feeling that when you get into what you think is a casual sexual relationship with somebody, you know, people are like, I can just have a fling with this person and I'll break up with them and it'll be no big deal. But, you know, breaking up with a person is not the same as like bringing a TV back to the store, right? Like, you know, you're hurting somebody, your heart starts to get involved in it. And so we did. We found that these people who said that they didn't want a relationship was one of our groups who were more likely to end up in a relationship.
So it sounds like the key takeaway is that just figuring out how to do things alone, be happy alone, and date because you enjoy it, and that's the key to success. Well, Dr. Geoff MacDonald is a psychology professor at the University of Toronto. Geoff, thanks for going over your research with me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Up next, we'll cover research on a daughter's looks changing how protective her dad is. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
The only talk show with an introduction that mentions its own introduction. And that's happening right now in this introduction. The Last Show with David Cooper.
I'm begging for a mention. Yeah, you just want attention.
Father-daughter bonds. What shapes them? Well, new research looks into that question and explores how income, education, and even a daughter's self-perceived attractiveness affect it. That's right, how attractive a daughter feels they are can influence their relationship with their father in areas like attachment, protection, and control. So let's take a glimpse into the psychology of modern parenting and the evolutionary instincts that might still guide it. Here with Dr. Ray Garza, who's a psychology professor at Texas A&M University. Ray, welcome in.
Thank you for having me.
What exactly is the daughter guarding hypothesis? I want to start with that. How does that help us understand modern father-daughter relationships?
Well, the daughter guarding hypothesis focuses primarily on parental behaviors in guarding a daughter's choices. These choices can stem from mating choices or other types of behavior she engages in, just as the way that she dresses and other choices in life. And the idea stems that as parents, we tend to guard our children, specifically our daughters, for the most part, in terms of navigating those choices in a particular direction.
Let's start with the kind of controversial or striking headline. Your study found that daughters that consider themselves more attractive reported stronger bonds with their dads. This is fascinating to me, maybe even a little surprising. Can you unpack this one a little bit? Tell us what's going on here.
Sure. Well, that's the headline, but that was just a small part of the study. Most of the study was primarily focusing on life history factors of fathers. So their educational attainment, overall income, religiosity, political orientation. And we also included, of course, in study one, where daughters were the ones that were answering these questions to rate their overall self-perceived attractiveness. And that, of course, in the model did predict attachment, support, and protection. But the main focus is primarily these other life history factors. That was nonetheless an interesting finding that we had on there. We did not ask that in study two. Study two was getting information from fathers.
Okay, we'll move away from the headline because you know how these writers always look for something juicy.
Correct, yeah.
A father's education, their income, how does that influence how emotionally available or maybe protective he is with his daughter?
Well, it's a good question. When we look at these life history factors like education, income, and other aspects like religiosity and perhaps political orientation as well, we know that these are parts of the father's life that are going to be fed into the daughter. So she's going to take these cues of that her father's going to provide her as cues of resources, cues of availability. And we find that fathers that have high degree of educational attainment, income, are able to spend more time with their daughters and facilitate more attachment, more support and protection, and less control overall. But we look at these from kind of the father's upbringing. What is a father exposed to early on in life that may facilitate these attachment styles? Because the information that the daughter is going to get from her parental upbringing is going to help form these attachment bonds that she has with them.
Let's talk about how fathers being less controlling is a function of being more emotionally attached. You'd think that someone who's more emotionally attached to their daughter would be more controlling, wouldn't you?
Correct, right? But we typically find more support for facilitating these stronger attachments, support, and protection. And if you're more attached to your father, that tends to stand to more support, more protection that you get from them, whether it's financial, whether it's physical. And we don't see those associations too much with it being associated with too strong controlling behaviors.
Another stereotype or assumption is that a highly religious father, or at least a father that's more religious, would be more protective of their daughter. You didn't exactly find that. Why do you think that is?
No, we ended up finding out I believe in study one, about religion being mostly tied into less protection. And it could be that depending on the type of religiosity or religion that the daughter finds herself in, or the family finds itself in, that just the overall social norms and the overall customs in general tend to kind of navigate the behavior overall, and which would essentially result in less protection or less type of supportive behaviors from the parent. So just knowing that this overall kind of religious system is existing may facilitate these behaviors rather than direct paternal or parental guidance.
Let's have fun with this for a second. There's that stereotype of the dad cleaning his shotgun when the daughter brings home the boyfriend for the first time. Is that kind of performative protection? Is there any truth to that, like evolutionary truth? Or did you see that in your study? Or is that just like sitcom nonsense that doesn't actually happen?
Well, it's a little bit more exaggerated, right? But we do know that fathers play a role in controlling their daughters' behaviors, primarily when it comes down to like mating choices. If a female does have that certainty that she is related to the child, and a male does not have that. So by protecting your daughter, you're essentially promoting your own genetics. You're propagating your own genes by having this amount of control or this amount of protection and close bonding with your daughter. But that's an exaggeration, of course. I'm sure some fathers would, right? If pushed to a certain extent, react a little bit more exaggerated like that. But we do see, of course, that these things are related to that type of control, that type of attachment.
Do you think we find similar results if we looked at sons instead of daughters, or is there something unique about this father-daughter bond?
Well, I think there is something unique. It's one of the first opposite sex relationships that a daughter is interacting with. But with sons, of course, sons and perhaps even culturally as well may be guarded and protected a little bit less. Sons do not have to worry about. They always have the uncertainty that they are going to be the father of the child. So I think with daughters, by maximizing that protection, you maximize your genetic interests quite a bit. But with sons, there's never that degree of certainty. So you might see a lot less type of controlling behaviors in regards to the way a parent parents their son. That's a good point in the sense that moving forward we could make a sex comparison, but the primary focus here was in daughter relations. It's an area that's underexplored, and it's an area that should be researched a little bit further.
We are talking a lot about the daughter's angle towards the father. Let's flip the script a bit. If a daughter feels close to her dad, how does that influence how she sees herself? Like, could strong fatherly support actually make someone feel more attractive, more confident, differently about themselves?
That's a very good question. Now, we did not ask in terms of that projection of attractiveness. We just asked in their overall levels of how they feel about themselves and self-perceived attractiveness, right? Or mate value to a certain extent. But we do know that in some of the literature that strong attachments do correlate with positive emotional regulation, overall well-being, less anxiety symptoms, less degrees of mental health. So we do know that there's a lot of positive outcomes from this attachment system that a daughter has with her father.
Any further areas of study in your research or anything coming up next?
Yes. So this is kind of like a first paper in an avenue of the different explorations that we have with my good colleague Fareed from the University of Plymouth in the United Kingdom. And we're looking at attachment systems, paternal attachments. So how you are attached to your father may actually predict overall relationship choices. We have some preliminary data. Paper's actually under review at the moment. So hopefully we hear some good things about that. Just a quick synopsis of that. We find that generally when a daughter is securely attached to her father, she ends up choosing relationships that are quite similar, relationships that are safe and relationships that are also secure. Granted, these are mostly heterosexual relationships. And we're also looking at a potential instrument that we're trying to build where we actually can get a usable scale, usable survey instrument where we can capture the amount of guarding that a daughter has. So the way that a father considers her daughter, how likely he is to control her, likely he is to protect her, as well as a daughter's perception of her father's overall support and overall control and protective behaviors. So that's kind of in the works right now.
Ray, thanks for talking to me about your research. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invitation. I greatly appreciate that.
Dr. Ray Garza is a psychology professor at Texas A&M International University. Coming up next, we'll look at the strange world of flirty, foul-mouthed AI companions. Tools that people are increasingly using like therapists. Could the future of human connection be with a robot? Or is getting very close to a large language model a sort of life crisis?
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
broadcasting from the neutral zone, where every perspective gets diplomatic immunity. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Is AI able to convey emotion these days? Can it be a good companion, a therapist, a girlfriend? That is what we'll discuss with meteorologist and consultant at thinkstart.ca, Mohit Rajhans. Mohit, welcome in.
Hey, well, hello. I thought you were offering me a companion the way that we were talking right off the top, but
I'm not convinced I'm not an AI companion for you, and this interview is just not real. We'll see. We are entering a strange age. Like, I have talked to friends that I think maybe jokingly ask ChatGPT therapy-style questions, but this stuff is getting increasingly real for people. And the guardrails on some of these platforms, like Grok's AI, are sort of not there, and that can lead to dark and ugly stuff, but it can also lead to interactions that are like deeply personal. What are we seeing in terms of intimacy and robots, so to speak, today?
yeah, it's interesting because we don't look at it from the several different viewpoints where people can make connections with the AI that they're interacting with. So just to demystify this very quickly, the same way that anybody has a call and response conversation with a Siri or a voice command, etc., we're seeing sort of this astronomical adoption of this multiple enhanced use case for these AI assistants in different places, whether it's through your shopping experience or your kids' mobile gaming, or through things like Grok, like you had mentioned. And because of that, what we're also seeing is people finding this natural connection, this feeling of, for example, if I rely on my Waze interaction AI, I use it for directions every time I'm driving. Or if I like Grok, like you'd mentioned, and she's witty, and this character is available for me to talk to, I'll continue to talk to it. And like you said, that's become problematic because how does anyone decipher about which one's safe to use and which one's just there for entertainment?
Or if the advice is good at all, like what if I ask it to, should I break up with my significant other? And then it gives me a list of pros and cons, and they're not exactly true. It sounds like a silly example, but what if we are approaching an age where people actually listen to it for advice or for ethics advice, like maybe a business ethics problem, and it tells me to do one thing, and that's unethical, maybe even illegal. Like, this is kind of the future we're approaching.
We are definitely. And to your point, anybody can make these. And so it's not like this is happening by one company in one place. The companies with the loudest voices, the biggest companies have the loudest launches, of course. But you and I eventually will have these open source, is what they refer to, these open source tools to be able to connect and create and also synthesize other people's voices, and that's where the deep fake stuff starts to come in. So we have to be careful right now. If you're a parent listening, you've got to talk to your kids about the synthetic related content that's starting to grasp the internet and people are starting to share, and more so how these AI chatbots can be both entertaining but problematic at the same time.
And let's talk about these guardrails a little bit. So something like ChatGPT, if I ask it to do something horrible, like show me how to make a weapon or show me how to plot a crime, it will say, no, thanks, I'm not going to do that. There are, subtle ways to trick it that people have found, but by and large, there are guardrails. These guardrails are not there because of any kind of regulation. They're there from the goodwill of the corporation. The corporation has decided they don't want you to use its tools for evil. There's nothing stopping, as you say, there's many players in this large language model space. There's many companies creating these chatbots. There could just be another company that decides, hey, we're basically like ChatGPT without guardrails. Wouldn't you want that? Why don't you pay us? Do you think regulation needs to come in? Governments need to come in? Or is that an overreach? And if it's not an overreach, what should we do? It just sounds like we're hurtling towards a mess.
Well, those are two separate questions. So definitely I'll address the first one first.
Sure.
The second one first. Every single country is starting to put up guardrails from a national perspective, whether it's how data is used through AI or whether it's what types of apps can be sold and marketed to customers in their country. So we are just at the cusp of starting to get regulation that will change the way certain things can operate within the country. Whether it'll protect people or not, I'm not 100% sure. But I will also mention the workaround that you just alluded to already exists. You can already sign up for another AI company that just takes the best of the other companies and works around their guardrails to create your own other project, and no one will ever know. So we're kind of in this weird place right now where the technology is just out there and free for people to use. The only thing that's going to limit for the use of these is the way that corporations themselves put out the code to be used. And that's not happening. They're not limiting themselves. They're all at a race to become the best.
They are. But here in the U.S., it's like, okay, free speech. You can't put guardrails on free speech and what bots are saying of free speech. I don't think any kind of regulation exists that prevents an AI from helping people do evil things right now, or at least describing to them how they might do evil things.
No, I don't know either, to be honest with you. And I think what ends up happening is the more we are the product right now, right? Let's be honest. We are building the product in real time. There's no manual you're going to turn to when you load up a companion that shows you how to use these things. You are making up the rules and as they happen. So it'll be fascinating to continue to follow. We could be talking about a flash in a pan. We could be talking about the end of AI companions right now as a result of how tricky things are already getting.
We could. Let's move on to our next topic. Let's look at how Gen Z interacts with social media. I was on a plane yesterday and there was two Gen Zers sitting next to me, and the way they were going through TikTok was startling to me. Like 2 seconds of attention, flip, 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 flip. Are all these kids on these platforms? Are they just a fun thing to do, or are they becoming a part of their professional lives, their social lives? These online platforms becoming integrated with young people's lives.
Yeah, I think what's ended up happening now, we're going through the second decade of social media. And I write about this in something called the social media shift. We continue to monitor different generations on how they interact with the things that we now consider legacy social media. And in doing that, we understand that the mastering of the scroll, the finger wagging, etc., has two forms, right? It's a waste of time. It's like fidget spinners for kids that once had them back in the day, or whoever I used to bite my nails. I think it's the same sort of thing. But they're also graduating into a place where social media is still used for several things. Everything from your professional profile to the way you market yourself to the way you're perceived. So Gen Z now is starting to look at this and stopping and saying, well, wait a minute. There's a utility to the value of the social media that we might have ignored and not taken part in. And so they're rebuilding a lot of their use case for Gen Z. And it's not just the use of TikTok scrolls.
Well, what else is it? Are people using private chat rooms like Discord or things like this?
Well, in all of everything that we'll talk about right now is just basically that everything has a utility. See, I'm from a generation was once you're on social media, you try to keep up on every platform. This generation understands that there's a real power to using LinkedIn properly. They'll use it professionally and not necessarily get it mixed up with celebrating people's birthdays. They'll use Snapchat only for their friends and understand how it's important to keep that community close. But then they'll use Instagram on a public account in order to make sure that the professionals that look them up are able to find them. That's the brilliance of this social media shift that's happening right now. And I'm super excited to see about what they're able to do with it in the years to come.
So there's no blurring of the platforms. Each platform has its utility. They use it just for that. It's not like, okay, I post one thing on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. It's the same thing everywhere. I'm public everywhere. I'm one persona. It's kind of, each one has its little domain. It's a tool, and use it for what it is.
Yeah, and to that point, they're also willing to shut things down. If they don't need a social media platform because they don't use it anymore. I know TikTokers that have graduated from the platform because they're no longer quote unquote influencers. So let's be real. This is going to be, a lot of us think that social media might be on the decline completely, but if this is one of the stories of optimism, I'm looking forward to following it.
Mohit Rajhans is a meteorologist and consultant at thinkstart.ca. Mohit, thanks for talking to me today. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Take care.
Ever try to focus while someone nearby keeps coughing and sniffling? It's not just annoying, it might actually make you learn worse. New research shows that these 6 sounds can mess with your brain in ways you don't even notice. After the break, we'll explain why you can't tune that sneeze out. Achoo!
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 40% off site-wide, plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
Where intellectual honesty gets witness protection from social prosecution. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Certain sounds grab our attention whether we want them to or not, and new research reveals that common noises like coughing and sniffling can quietly interfere with our learning. They pull away your focus from tasks like studying or test taking, which is to say our brains might prioritize health threats over academic focus. I'm here with someone who's done research in this area. He's an assistant professor of psychology at the State University of New York in Oneonta. His name is Dr. Carey Fitzgerald. Carey, welcome in. Excited to chat about this.
Oh, thanks, David. I'm happy to be here.
At a high level here, what exactly is the behavioral immune system, and how did it lead to you studying coughing and sneezing sounds in a learning environment?
Well, the behavioral immune system is really just sort of a blanket term to refer to all the different ways that our brain might try to steer us away from things that could make us sick. So a lot of the times this translates to our disgust response. So if you've ever smelled dog feces or something, usually we'll automatically pull away. And that's our behavioral immune system just sort of telling us, like, stay away from this thing. It probably has pathogens in it.
Is that the knee-jerk reaction? Like someone coughs and I react badly and I give them a dirty look before I've even realized it, and then I feel bad that I looked at them like they were like toxic or something like that?
Exactly, 100%. Yeah. So this comes through in a lot of ways. You know, if you ever walk into a restaurant that looks really dirty or maybe has a health code violation, you might just turn around and walk away. To some extent, this is also the behavioral immune system. So it translates to a lot of different mechanisms, and it's still being heavily studied. We were finding all sorts of different things. And this came to my attention in a way because teaching in upstate New York, we get some pretty harsh winters. And when you're giving a test in January or February, you just hear like surround sound, coughing, sneezing, and sniffling. And you'll just see the student's head perk up and look around and then kind of give back with their test. And so I'd done a little bit of research on disgust responses in the past, nothing auditory, but that sort of those sort of couple of ideas there kind of came together in that regard.
I have something called the photic sneeze reflex, which is basically whenever I see bright light, I sneeze. I sneeze probably 20 times a day. So I'm used to people on the street looking at me like I'm going to, well, kill them. So I'm intimately aware of this. Talk to me more about what happens in a learning environment when somebody coughs. Like I'm in class trying to pay attention. I'm in the exam hall trying to write my exam, and the person nearby coughs and it sounds like they have a cold or something.
Yeah, I tend to equate it to multitasking. You know, we're not really good at multitasking. And so just imagine that one of your tasks is to do this test, and the other task is this automatic sort of attention pulling away. Like, do I need to pay attention to this? Do I need to move away? But I'm trying to do this right now. And that was sort of the essence of our study, was to see if these two tasks are sort of competing against each other, or if one is going to take more attention from the other.
I would argue, with no research and no expertise here, that these illness-related sounds, these coughs, they kind of sneak past our conscious radar. They distract us without us even realizing it. How does this happen? Like, imagine I don't want to look at my girlfriend when she coughs and be like, I gotta get away from you. You are going to make me sick. And yet I do have that knee-jerk reaction. How does this kind of like stealthily get past our conscious awareness?
Yeah, it's something we call automatic processing. So we have automatic processing, which is very quick, like reflexive. And then we also have controlled processing, which is more like higher order thinking. And across the board, even when we're not talking about pathogens, automatic processing is just faster and usually the quick knee-jerk reaction that takes place. And it will always supersede controlled processing. And so in this regard, that's what we think is happening.
When I was reading about your research, I saw that there was a 17% drop in quiz performance when these sounds were around students writing tests. That is a dramatic number. Were you shocked by like how worse people can do on quizzes if people are coughing and sneezing around them?
Yeah, that was compared to our control group where there was no distraction. We had another condition where there were neutral sounds, so like backpack zippers zipping and keys jingling and stuff. And we still saw an 11% drop in our pathogen condition compared to that neutral condition as well. So this was huge. We had pretty small samples, only about 89 students participated in this, and we were able to find the effect with that.
I wonder if you let students use, maybe not with their phones because they could cheat, maybe you give them your own device, but if you let them use like noise canceling headphones or white or gray or pink or blue, every type of noise has a different color these days and they're all slightly different, but basically white noise. Do you think that could be like a takeaway to help students just have an exam hall where all noise distractions are removed?
Yeah, just drown it out. Absolutely. It could happen. We tested this with like individual students in a small windowless room. So how it generalizes to an actual classroom setting, we still need to find out because it could be, if you have surround sound coughing going on or the person next to you is coughing up a lung, even if you have headphones on, you might still be seeing that out of the corner of your eye or something too. And so there was probably a lot more going on in actual classrooms that we haven't been able to study yet.
We're talking a lot about the negatives. There's got to be an evolutionary plus side to this subconscious reaction to coughing. Like, our ancestors, apes in caves, if my neighbor sneezed and I had the wherewithal to get away from them, I might have a better chance of not getting sick. There's got to be some plus to this, right?
Absolutely. And that is it. Especially the time before we had vaccines and antibiotics, this would have been a way for our ancestors to stay healthy, to stay away from those who are sick. And there's even been some theory regarding sort of an arms race between our cognitive mechanisms and pathogens. And so, for example, a lot of diseases we transmit to others before we're even showing symptoms. And that might be one of the reasons why, because once we start showing symptoms, people stay away from us.
It's not just coughing, though. Like images of pathogens can spark this response. Smells. Would a nasty smell in an exam room? Like, I don't know, I sound like I have a stomachache, or I smell like, I don't know, vomit or something gross. Would that have an effect on students or effect on us?
I like to think so. I actually joke. I have my two colleagues, Robert Lockemeyer and Rick Kaufman, who helped me with this experiment. And I've joked about doing a follow-up where we get some canned fart spray and spray it in the lab and see if that distracts participants. But as far as I know, there's no research on bad smells affecting test performance yet.
Here we are talking about canned fart spray, and I'm thinking, I love my job. There you are in the classroom talking with your fellow professors about studying with canned fart spray. There's got to be a moment there where you'll be like, man, I love my job.
Oh, it's the best for sure, man.
If you had to create like the worst possible learning environment from everything that you've studied, what would that look like? And then maybe construct for me the best possible one.
Oh, man. The worst would be a room full of sick people, maybe with some dog feces somewhere on the desk too, just to have that bad image, the bad smell, the bad sounds. I assume everyone would fail that test at that point.
All right, let's talk things that maybe won't get me in trouble with my boss here. Like the perfect classroom, or at least little tips that you can take from your research to help students so that they're not getting distracted.
Yeah, and a lot of that does go back to quiet testing rooms. In a perfect world, if we could let participants take tests in individual rooms or soundproof rooms, or as you mentioned earlier, white noise canceling headphones. We already see in research on people who do memory tasks, like hefty memory Olympics type stuff, that when they study, they have noise canceling headphones on, they have glasses on with visual blockers, anything we can to block out any extraneous information.
When you studied students writing exams, were they real exams? And if they were, did you feel bad about playing coughing sounds, knowing that they might score worse?
No, this was just research, so it wasn't affecting any participants' grades. And the questions that we used in our research were just related to a video that we had them watch on statistics.
Great. So I can run the disclaimer that no undergrads were harmed during the trial of this study or whatever.
Yeah. No undergrad grades were harmed.
All right. Well, Dr. Carey Fitzgerald is an assistant professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Oneonta. Carey, thanks for talking to me today. What an interesting study. I'm going to maybe go cough now.
Thank you, David. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you like what you hear, but you didn't catch the whole show, or you're not going to be with us on a given night, good news, the last show is available as a podcast. As ever, head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's .pizza, not .com. Don't ask me why we chose that. Yes, it's a real domain. There you can find out details about our podcast, including how to subscribe. So go ahead and do that. I mean, I can't force you to. I'm not your mother. I can't tell you what to do, but we would very much appreciate it. That's the show. Thanks for tuning in. If you've got questions, comments, feedback, or need help picking the best apple in the supermarket, don't be scared to call us. The number is 1-888-505-6644. If we don't pick up, leave a message, because the show might not be airing when you call. That's 1-888-505-6644. I'm David Cooper. This is, or was, The Last Show. We'll be back tomorrow.
They come from Survivor, they come from Big Brother, they know what they're doing.
These vets wrote the playbook, and they have all had to earn their stripes.
How did you win Survivor?
Manipulating people. Same thing I'm gonna do here.
And now, new threats will enter the game, hungry to forge a new legacy.
Once we train them, it's gonna be hard to contain.
This really, truly is the most even matchup that I've seen in a long time.
The Challenge, Vets and New Threats. New season Wednesday, July 30th on Slice and stream on Stack TV.